Good evening, good evening, good evening. The first principle in the science of getting rich. Thought is only power. Thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. That's got to make you wonder, right? I mean, we really need to pay attention to that right there. Thought is the only thing, the only power. It doesn't say the only thing, it says power, the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. The stuff from which all things are made is a substance which thinks. What does that really mean? A substance that thinks. How does a tree grow? How does a tomato plant know it's a tomato plant? Does it have access to the thinking stuff? I think it does. How does a dog speak Japanese, Chinese, German, English, Dutch, Portuguese? It's based on one thing, vibration. I don't know that they understand the language. I think they do. I also think they understand the vibration, and that's the thinking stuff. A thought of form in this substance produces the form. What'd you think about today? You got exactly what you thought about today. Anybody ever have muscadine wine? It's pretty good. Made here in Arkansas. A thought of form. A thought of form. This is where clarity comes in. This is where understanding comes in. This is where your DMP comes in. A thought of form in this substance produces the form. Original substance moves according to its thoughts. Where do we have absolute proof of this? God said, let there be light. And there was light. Let there be water, and there was water. Was it the thought of light? It was the thought of water, and then all of a sudden it appeared, it manifested from the thinking stuff. Every form and process you see in nature is the visible expression of thought in the original substance. There's people who do bad. All starts with a thought. There's people who do good. All starts with a thought. As it thinks of a form, it takes that form. As it thinks of motion, it makes that motion. That is the way all things were created. We live in a thought world. And this world is part of the thought universe. Man, that's all about vibration. This is the science. There's only thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. Even right now, you want to go create a dish, you want to cook dinner. Right? When I get off of here, if Mason and Michelle haven't cooked dinner, I'll probably do, I don't know, tuna fish or something, but I'll have a thought of what I want. And then, funny how the things are already available for me to produce it. That's not the finished meal. My thought makes it so. It's not the finished goal. My thought makes it so. This is where thinking, Emerson said, the most difficult thing you'll ever do is the idea of sustained thought. Thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. The stuff from which all things are made is a substance which thinks. Let that settle in. I know I'm rereading it. The stuff from which all things, what does that mean? That all of this out here, everything that fills and permeates and penetrates the inner spaces of the universe is a thinking substance. Is this where the mastermind comes in? When two minds get together, a third is created. Does it accessing the thinking substance? Is that what triggers the mastermind? Two minds in harmony produce a third? A thought of the form, a thought of form, a thought of form. This is where your definite major purpose, your clarity, your visualization, a thought of form in this substance. So is it possible to have a thought of form outside of the original substance, outside of the thinking stuff? Is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. What gives you access to the thinking substance? What gives you access to the original source? I'd say it's chapter 7. Anyone want to type in the chat what chapter 7 is? Gratitude. A thought of form in this substance produces the form. Original substance moves according to its thoughts. What causes it to start thinking? If it's a thinking substance, what causes it to start thinking? What is it already thinking? How many of you have heard the phrase, what you are seeking is seeking you? What if we change this? Is Danny on here? I think Danny's on here, right? In the beginning of the book, The Magic, it says, those who have it will get more, and those who don't, even what they have will be taken away. It says it even more eloquently than that. Okay. So, Danny, what if we took this? What if we said original substance moves according to thought? What if we said there is a thinking substance? What if we said there is, oh, what was I going to just say? Hang on. Oh, what you are seeking is seeking you is the phrase we talk about, right? We've all heard that. Not if you've heard what you are seeking is seeking you. What if we change that? What if I took some, whatever you call it, when you change the words to something? What you are thinking is thinking you. What you are gratituding is gratituding you. Every form and process you see in nature is the visible expression of thought in the original substance. As it thinks of a form, it takes that form. As it thinks of motion, it makes that motion. That is the way all things are created. God needs us to plant the seed? Not really, but God needs us to plant the seed, but we can't grow the seed. God grows the seed. It's the thinking substance that grows the seed. How many tomatoes in a tomato plant? Millions, right? This tomato seed will grow a tomato plant with, anybody ever grow those cherry tomatoes and the plant's like 5 feet tall and you got hundreds of them and you're picking off buckets of them every day? How many seeds in each one of those tomato plants? Talk about abundance. You want abundance? Plant something. As it thinks of a form, it takes that form. As it thinks of motion, it makes that motion. That is the way all things are created. We live in a thought world. And the world is part of a thought universe. A thought of a moving universe extended throughout the formless substance. Man, there's a lot in that sentence. A thought of a moving universe extended throughout the formless substance. So which is bigger? The moving universe or the formless substance? Sounds like the formless substance is bigger because the universe is moving through that which is formless. Yeah. Welcome to philosophy and theology 606. The thinking stuff resulting from that thought took the form of the systems of the planets and continues to maintain that form. Thinking substance takes the form of its thought and moves according to the thought. How many of you have thought yourselves into good days? How many of you have thought yourselves into less than good days? That's the thinking stuff. When you grasp this, when you allow yourself to give up how hard life should be and how difficult good things should be, it gets, I don't want to say easy. It gets massively fun. The thinking stuff resulting from that thought took the form of the systems of the planets and continues to maintain that form. Thinking substance takes the form of its thought and moves according to the thought. Not according to the strategy, how many of us have done strategies that were supposed to be good but turned out bad? Because we were thinking it was bad. What? No, that's not true. My mentor would say, "You're right, I'm rich. Let's move on." The thinking substance takes the form of its thought and moves according to the thought, holding the idea of a circling system of suns and worlds. It took the form of those bodies and moved them accordingly. Although centuries may be required to do the work, by thinking the form of a slow-growing tree, the formless substance produces the tree. In creating the formless substance produces the tree. In creating, the formless substance seems to move according to the lines of motion it has established. We can kind of predict it's 9 months for a baby. Some are early, some are later. It's 8 months for a cow, or however long it is to raise a cow. It's 5 months for a sheep, and I'll learn what that is. And it's this much for that, and that much for this. There's lines of motion already in place. So here's the dilemma. What's the lines of motion for your dream? And let me ask you this. So Heather, how far are you from Branson?
22 miles.
22 miles. I'm probably farther than that. But should I complain that Heather's only 22 miles from Branson? The laws of motion dictate that's the laws of motion that it takes to get to Branson is hers 22 miles. Me, it's probably, I don't know, 90 miles. Just guessing. Branson hasn't moved. Why does it take me longer to get there? Because I'm farther away from my dream. I'm farther away from it. The laws of motion say that if I say I'm going to Branson, it's an hour-and-a-half drive. Alexa, how far is Shirley, Arkansas from Branson, Missouri?
From Branson, Shirley is 111.5 miles.
111 miles. So it'll take me 2 hours if I got to stop for gas. But why am I okay with that? Why don't I complain and moan and jump up and down and go, but I want to be 22 miles? Then move your butt closer. How far away is your dream? How far away is your goal? What's the laws of motion that say it's going to take for you to get there? Do you see how many variables now exist? We haven't even gotten off of page 1 of chapter 4 yet. It's mostly my fault. All my fault. But the laws of motion. And if you give up, how many of you have ever played Monopoly and you skipped Go and went to jail? You don't collect your $200 at Go and you go to jail. Go directly to jail, right? How many of you do that on a daily basis? You go back to jail, your old story. You don't allow the laws of motion, the laws of the universe, the 7 perpetual laws that we talked about. Energy is, law of polarity, law of opposites, law of comparison. I could sit and spend the next year going and complaining that Heather's 22 miles away and I'm 111.5. That's not fair. Why is it not fair? You chose to live over there. How many of us are comparing the laws of the universe to something other than who we are? In creating the formless substance, it seems to move according to the lines of motion it is established. The thought of an oak tree does not cause the instant formation of a full-grown tree, but it does start in motion the forces which will produce the tree along the established lines of growth. Every thought of form held in the thinking substance, which means we got to concentrate. What does it mean to hold the form in the thinking substance? Isn't that visualization? Isn't that meditating, manifesting, manifestation, gratitude? How long can you hold the thought in the thinking substance? How well does it, here's a question I don't know that I've ever asked this, and I don't know that I've ever read the response to this. So this is a question. If the thinking substance allows a thought to be held in it, can the thinking substance do any holding on to our thought? Every thought of form held in the thinking substance causes the creation of that form, but always, or at least generally, along the lines of growth and action already established. Why do you think he said, but always, or at least generally? Because of miracles. You get a whole bunch of people thinking about the same thing, working in harmony. If the thought of a house of a certain construction were impressed upon the formless substance, it might not cause the instant formation of the house, but it would cause the turning of creative energies already working in trade and commerce into such channels as to result in the speedy building of the house. We're doing that now. Michelle is drawing a plan. We're drawing it out on paper. We'll get the plans made up. And that's the start of we're building the house. We're literally building the house. And there's not a single thing you see happening over there. On the other side of the property, you don't see anything happening. But over here, the duck's feet are going like crazy, drawing, erasing, put a closet here, put a stairs there. That's not going to make. We need to put the stairs over, right? We are creating this thing in the formless substance. And when the formless substance says, you done? And we say, we're done. Let's start building. The formless substance moves trade and commerce into action. And if there were no existing channels through which the creative energy could work, the house would be formed directly from the primal substance, which is different than the thinking stuff, the formless substance, the primal substance, the thing that created the thinking stuff. Isn't there something that created the thinking substance? AKA the primal substance, without waiting for the slow process of the organic and the inorganic world, AKA miracles. No thought of form can be impressed upon the original substance without causing the creation of that form. A human being is a thinking center and can originate thought. Originate thought. That means you are doing the thinking as opposed to using everybody else's thinking as your own. A human being is a thinking center and can originate thought. All the forms of that a person fashions with his hands must first emerge from his thought. He cannot shape a thing until he has thought of that thing. I'm thinking of an outhouse. I'm building it over there. It's changing, it's producing the form. But as I build and think it through, the universe is giving me clues and suggestions. I'm adapting and adopting things. It's kind of cool. And so far as man has confined his efforts wholly to the work of his hands, listen carefully. This is a big one. This is a huge one. And so far man has confined his efforts wholly to the work of his hands, he has applied manual labor to the world of forms. Myron Golden, 4 ways to create income: manipulation, coordination, communication, imagination, manipulation. So far, man has confined his efforts wholly to the work of manipulation. At 1936, when this was written, or thereabouts. Manipulation, you doing the work. Manipulation, the lowest form of income. The lowest form of income is you doing the manipulation. He has applied manual labor to the world of forms, seeking to change or modify already existing forms. I'm changing trees into peeled logs that are turning into an outhouse. I'm not growing an outhouse. Really, I'm not. You would think as long as it's taking, I might be growing an outhouse. It's the right place to grow an outhouse with an outhouse. But that's not what's happening. I'm taking forms that already exist, using my hands, a chainsaw, a draw knife, all of these things to convert that form into a new form. He has never thought of trying to cause the creation of new forms by impressing his thoughts upon the formless substance. Creating a new outhouse is by calling Bond's septic tank and saying, bring me an outhouse. $1,000, it'll be here tomorrow. That's creating it out of the formless substance. I didn't make it. I didn't create the manufacturing facility, the injection molding facility, the rivet gun that puts it all together, the blah, 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 blah. The truck that brings it here. That's the formless substance. I say, porta potty, bring me one. Boom, shows up in a week. I don't know how they made it. I just know all of a sudden it appears. You do that every day when you use Amazon or shopping online or anything like that. When a person has a thought, form, he takes material from the forms of nature and makes an image of the form which is in his mind. What's a great example of that? Origami. Isn't that a great example of manipulating stuff to make better stuff or different stuff? He has so far made little or no effort to cooperate with the formless intelligence, to work, quote, with the Father, unquote. We have to work with the Father. This is faith. This is gratitude. This is belief. This is working with the formless intelligence to work with the Father. He has not dreamed that he can do what he seeketh the Father doing. Didn't Jesus say, even the least of you can do this and more? Before he did every miracle, he said, thank you. We've seen miracles produced in this plane of existence called humanity. How is that possible? It's connecting with the formless substance, connecting with the formless intelligence to work with the Father. He has not dreamed that he can do what he seeketh the Father doing. Man reshapes and modifies existing forms by manual labor. How many of you want to get a script? Manual labor. It's okay to do it. It's okay to understand that. But wouldn't you have to do it in a thinking way to change the way it is so that you can have the result you want? He has not considered the question. Man reshapes and modifies existing forms by manual labor. He has not considered the question of whether he could produce things from the formless substance by communicating his thoughts to it. I propose to prove that he may do so. In that Wallace D. Wattles, this guy who was in the church and the minister got in trouble, I think, for whatever he got in trouble for. And Wallace just says, okay, I'm free to investigate other ways to explain this concept that he became aware of. I propose to prove that he may do so, to prove that any man or woman may do so, and to show you how. My first step will be to lay down 3 fundamental propositions. You ready for them? First, we assert that there is one original formless substance from which all things are made. If you can agree with that, you get to move on to the second principle. All the seemingly many elements are only different presentations of one element. All of the many forms found in the organic and the inorganic nature are only different shapes made from the same stuff. Anybody want to guess what the same stuff is? It's the amount of electrons that are in something. You look at the periodic table. It's the same electrons and protons and neutrons and croutons and whatever is in makes up the damn things. But there's one more electron here or 2 less electrons there, and it changes it from iron to lead to gold to silver to mercury. It's just the number of electrons. That's the thinking stuff. How does it know to do that? How does it know? How does iron know to be iron? How does aluminum know to be aluminum? How does mercury know to be mercury? It's the thinking stuff. It's the thinking substance. It's the intelligence form. First, we assert that there is one original substance from which all things are made. All the seemingly many elements are only different presentations of one element. All of the many elements, all of the many forms found in the organic and inorganic naturally found in the organic and the inorganic nature are only different shapes made from the same stuff. And this stuff is thinking stuff. Hey, how does a plant know to lean to the sun? Anybody ever give an IQ to a plant and it goes, you're an idiot. How come you don't know to lean to the sun? You ever see a plant not lean to the sun? I've seen people not drink water. I've seen people not lean to the sun. And this stuff is thinking stuff. A thought held in it produces a form of the thought. Thought in thinking substance produces shapes. A human being is a thinking center capable of original thought. Your DMP, your desire. If a person can communicate his thought to the original thinking substance, he can cause the creation or formation of a thing he thinks about. To summarize it, some of you are going to choke a little bit now because you've heard this 1,000 times every day. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made and which in its original state permeates and penetrates and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by the thought. A person can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. I can prove these statements by both logic and experience. Reasoning back from the phenomena of form and thought, I come to one original thinking substance. And reasoning forward from this thinking substance, I can come to an individual's power to cause the formation of the thing he thinks about. By experiment, I find this reasoning to be true. And this is my strongest proof. Y'all want proof? Here comes the proof. If one person who reads this book gets rich by doing what I tell him to do, that is evidence in support of my claim. Furthermore, if every person who does what I tell them to do gets rich, that is positive proof until someone goes through this process and fails. The theory is true until the process fails, and this process will not fail because every person who does exactly what I tell them to do will get rich. Wouldn't this be the book you'd want to study? Wouldn't you give up listening to everybody else who's got you emotionally charged and fired up and telling you to do this and algorithm that? Wouldn't you make this the study? If this is the science, I dare you to prove it wrong. I dare you to follow it to the T and say it doesn't work. Then I'll listen to you. But if you've got 72 books and trainings and this, that, and the other that you're going to go listen to, and 48 mentors and coaches and trainers, I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because you keep burning the candle without any light. You got to be exhausted. I would encourage you. I would cajole you. I would implore you. I would beg you. Sharpen your saw on this. If I had said that an individual, if I have said that an individual gets rich by doing things in a certain way, in order to do so, a person must become able to think in a certain way. A person's way of doing things is the direct result of the way he or she thinks about things. How many of you had something today that turned your crank a little bit sideways? I'm not asking you to respond. Just pay attention to your own thoughts. If you had something that turned your crank a little sideways, I got to tell you, you are accessing the thinking stuff and pouring a whole bunch of patookie in it, and you wonder why you struggle. Everything happens for your good, and you've got an identity that is so addicted to the approval of your own identity. You got to leave who you are behind. It doesn't mean you can't take all of the lessons and the learnings, but if you're going to stay thinking the way you're thinking, you're going to keep doing the things you're doing and getting the things you're getting. I don't know how that's going to change anything. Thinking and spending meditating time and for 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 2 hours a day and then going to throw the listen, I was over at my buddy's ranch with all of the sheep. My shoes were clean. Walking around there, I got some poop on my shoes. I can leave there and come home with poop on my shoes and go, man, my house smells like sheep. Boop. And it does. But I didn't get it here. I brought it with me. How many of you are bringing sheep beep with you? You're stepping in it called your past and you're bringing it and it's not your past. It's not your old story if you used it today. It takes so much energy to allow this shift to take place. In order to do so, a person must become able to think in a certain way. My mentor taught me this. You got to work with people who are ready, willing, and able. There's some people who aren't able to think in a certain way. They may be ready and they may be willing, but they sure as heck are not able. And there's people who are able, but they ain't ready and they ain't willing, but boy, they sure could. They sure could. This is the trifecta, the ready, the willing, and the able. A person's way of doing things is the direct result of the way he thinks about things, reacting or responding. To do things that you want to do things in a way you want to do them, you will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think. To do the things in a way you want to do them, you will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think, aka gratitude. This is the first step toward getting rich. To think what you want to think is to think truth. Ooh, somebody needs to underline this. Truth regardless of appearances. I'm so faithful. I believe I can quote you Bible and verse. I have tremendous faith. No, you don't. Not if you're broken poor. Not if you're broken poor. You can't tell me you understand the Bible if you're broken poor. I'm sorry. You can't. I go to church every Sunday. Great. How's that working for you? You doing your tithing and all of that? Well, yeah, I tithe, but I'm still broke. You're not paying attention to the words. To think what you want to think is to think truth regardless of appearances. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the secret that 99.9% of the population will never acknowledge. Man, when you're neck high and neck deep and sheep beep, you got to say, man, there's something awesome happening here. If you lose your energy, if you turn downward spiral for a second, if you take it as not truth, everything happens for your good, it says in the Bible. I love people who are scholarly Bible verses people and teach and train. And they don't want to spend 10 minutes with me. Jesus got mad when he saw the fig tree. How dare you not do what you're supposed to do? That's what he said to the fig tree. A fig tree not figging? A human not being? How dare you not be? Ain't me. Every person has a natural and inherent power to think what he wants to think, but requires far more effort to do so than it does to think the things which are suggested by appearances. But it requires far more effort. To think according to appearances is easy. To think truth regardless of appearance is laborious. Emerson, The idea of sustained thought is the most difficult thing you will ever do. To think truth regardless of appearances is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work a person has to perform. Wait, what? I'm just doing nothing. Think and grow rich. Think and grow rich. DMP and grow rich. Gratitude and grow rich. Meditate and grow rich. Manifest and grow rich. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. You listen to Joe Dispenza, him rebuilding his spine. He could have had 2 rods put down either side of his spine. He says, no, I'm going to do it myself. With God's help, I'm going to do it I'm going to rebuild this. The $6 million man, he rebuilt himself. Took him 6, 7 weeks, months. Took him a long time to get through the whole building process of sustained and consecutive thoughts. Some of you can't hold a thought for more than 3 minutes. It's the story of the priest who says, riding his mule through town, and the farmer sees him and he says, Father, I need a mule. Oh my God, it's such a beautiful mule. And he says to the farmer, he says, my son, say the Our Father, and I'll give you the mule. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive. Does the saddle come with it, Father? Couldn't get through the Our Father for the free mule. How many of you get distracted before the end of your prayer, before the end of your dream? Just saying, it's right here. It's been here. It's free on the internet. Why don't more people find it? To think according to appearances is easy. To think truth regardless of appearance is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work a person has to perform. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. I'm rich. That's why the affirmations don't work. They're powerful. They're supposed to work. I am rich. That's security and safety. It's supposed to work. But there's so much doubt behind when somebody goes, I am rich. Good morning, billionaires. Are you kidding me? Blow it out your ear. Sustained thought, every appearance in the visible world tends to produce the corresponding form in the mind which observes it. You see poverty in your bank account? Boy, you come up with poverty. I love it. You think, oh my God, my bank account has 0 in it. I'm poor. Really? Really? Is that what you get from that? Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce the corresponding form of the mind which observes it. This can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth of your idea, the gratitude. Gratitude brings truth right smack dab in your face. And if your gratitude isn't sinking truth, you're grateful, which is why your gratitude's not working. Oh, yeah. This is only chapter 4. We've got like 10 more chapters to go. I don't want to do this. This sucks. To look upon the appearance of disease will produce the form of disease in your own mind. How are you feeling? I have a crap. Anybody know what a cuspid is or something? That's the ridges on your teeth. You got 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. I got a cracked cuspid. That's what you guys were helping me deal with. You know when he's going to get it fixed? April 15th is when I go to get a crown put on my cracked cuspid. I love it. I love it. I got a cracked cuspid. I don't know what that means. It's cracked. And if I touch it right, it goes, woo. If I put some cold on it, it goes, woo. And I get to go, woo. I can feel my teeth. I love it. It doesn't hurt right now. It's supposed to hurt. It doesn't hurt. I got people praying for it, doing magnets and energy and everything. Doesn't hurt. I got a cracked cuspid. You know what people be going, oh, my tooth hurts so much. April 15th. Oh, my God, I'll be in so much pain. They'll ruin their liver with all the acetaminophen they take between now and then. I ain't making this stuff up. I think the universe sometimes gives me a little kick in the old cheeks because it says, well, but you're just lucky. I'm outstanding. I'm not lucky. I'm outstanding. To look upon the appearance of poverty will produce the corresponding forms of the mind. Instead, you must hold the truth that there is no poverty. Come on, there is no poverty. Say it. There is no poverty. Feel a knot in your gut? That's your second brain going, you are so full of crap. Your eyes are brown. Just say there's no poverty. I can promise you, I can show you a billion people who wish they had your life. They think you're the richest person on the planet. Instead, you must hold the truth that there is no poverty. There's only abundance. What would happen if you truly believed their abundance? Wouldn't abundance start flowing to you and flowing with you and flowing because of you? It requires power to think health when surrounded by the appearances of disease, or to think riches in the midst of the appearances of poverty. But he who acquires this poverty becomes a mastermind. But he who acquires this power becomes a mastermind. You master your mind. He can conquer fate, and he can have what he wants. This power can only be acquired. This power can only be acquired. You want me to read the rest of it? This power can only be acquired by getting hold of the basic fact, which is behind all appearances, that there is one thinking substance from which all things are made. Then we must grasp the truth that thought held in this substance becomes the form that the person can impress upon his thoughts. Then we must grasp the truth that every thought held in this substance produces a form that a person can impress his thoughts upon it, so as to create that, to cause them to take form and become visible things. When we realize this, we lose all doubt and fear. What if you could lose all doubt and fear? Let me reread the sentence before that. We must grasp the truth that every thought held in this substance, the intelligent substance, the primordial substance, becomes a form that a person can impress his thoughts upon, so as to cause it to take form and become visible things. When we realize this, we lose all doubt, all fear, because we know that we can create what we want to create: health, wealth, finances, relationships, you name it. We know that we can create that we can create what we want to create. You can get what you want to have and can become what you want to be. You can get what you want to have and become what you want to be. As the first step toward getting rich, you must believe the three fundamental statements given previously in this chapter. In order to emphasize them, I will repeat them here. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by the thought. A person can form things in his thought, DMP, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance, gratitude, can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. You must lay aside all other concepts of the universe than this monastic one. You must dwell upon this until it is fixed in your mind. It has become the habitual thought. Read these creed statements over and over and over and over and over again. Fix every word upon your memory and meditate upon them until you firmly believe what they say. If a doubt comes to you, cast it aside as a sin. Do not listen to arguments against this idea. Do not go to churches or lectures where a contrary concept of things is taught or preached. And I could say, do not go to churches or social medias or other coaches or other trainers or other people that if you get mixed up in your faith, all your efforts will be in vain. Ugh. Do not ask why these things are true, nor speculate as to how they can be true. Simply take them on trust. The science of getting rich begins with an absolute acceptance of faith. Mm, 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 mm. What'd you learn? What'd you like? What'd you learn? What'd you like? That's some big stuff. Stone silence.
There's
That's a
so
lot to
per sentence that you read, and it's like thinking and listening to it and really living from that is it would take a lifetime of practice, it seems to me.
And how many of us have lived a lifetime in a second? We're in the middle of a disaster, right? It's all about focus.
Yeah, it was very cool. It's wonderful to hear you read. I've heard Michael Beckwith and Bob Proctor do this, and in conversation, and each one of them, it was amazing because he just adds a whole other dimension. Makes me want, I'm going to go listen to it again.
Absolutely.